Nothing could have prepared me to see my wife of 17 years kissing another man on the kiss cam during a Cubs game. In seconds, our private life became global entertainment. Memes, jokes, viral humiliation. How does a betrayed husband recover when the whole world is laughing at his pain? My name is Michael Green. I'm 46 years old, and I work as a project manager in commercial construction here in Chicago. I've been married to Emma for 17 years, and we have 2 kids, Todd, who's 16, and Chloe, who's 12. Our routine followed the typical suburban pattern. I'd get home from the job sites around 6:30, catch the kids in the middle of their activities, and Emma would arrive later after work. It was an organized, structured life. Nothing that suggested everything could change in a matter of minutes. That Tuesday in March started like any other. Todd was on the couch scrolling through his phone. Chloe was finishing her homework at the kitchen table. The TV was on with the evening news, just background noise in a routine we'd lived for years. Emma had messaged earlier saying she'd be late because of a meeting that ran over. Totally normal in our house. I started making dinner, thinking about how well our family dynamic worked. Everyone playing their part. Nothing out of the ordinary. As I chopped vegetables for the salad, I could hear Todd laughing at something on his phone. Chloe came over for help with a math question, and we ended up chatting about her day at school, her teachers, her friends, the usual. These were the moments I loved most, the small discoveries of everyday life. The house had that familiar late afternoon calm, soft conversation, something simmering on the stove, the TV murmuring in the background. Everything exactly as it should be in a stable family. Suddenly, I noticed Todd had stopped laughing. When I looked toward the living room, he had a strange expression, a mix of surprise and what looked like embarrassment. He'd taken off his headphones and was staring at me in a way I couldn't quite read, like he was processing something disturbing. I kept stirring the food, but I could feel the shift in the air. You know that feeling when someone wants to tell you something but hesitates? That's exactly what was hanging in the room at that moment. Then Todd slowly stood up and walked into the kitchen, holding his phone carefully. "Dad," he said, and there was a seriousness in his voice that made me drop the spoon instantly. "You need to see this." He turned the screen toward me, and what I saw made the world stop. It was a viral cheating video from a game, the infamous kiss cam zooming in on the crowd. And there was Emma, my wife of 17 years, kissing a man I had never seen in my life. My wife, kissing her lover in public while thousands in the stadium cheered and millions watched online, turning our life into viral entertainment. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the screen for what felt like an eternity. My mind was struggling to process the impossible. It really was Emma, kissing another man like it was the most natural thing in the world. Todd stayed silent beside me, probably not knowing what to say in a moment like that. The video already had millions of views and hundreds of mocking comments. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. I needed to hear Emma's voice. I needed some kind of explanation that would make this disappear from reality. She picked up on the third ring with that same casual tone. "Hey babe, everything okay? I'm still in the meeting, but I'm just wrapping up here." For a second, I almost believed it was all some terrible mistake, some kind of mix-up. Then I took a deep breath and said the words that changed our lives forever. "Emma, you're on TikTok kissing another man." The silence on the other end of the line was crushing. It lasted long enough for me to realize there would be no denial, no innocent explanation. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost all trace of that easygoing tone. "Michael, we need to talk when I get home." That was the moment the lie unraveled completely. She wasn't in any work meeting. She was with him, the man from the video, probably trying to figure out how to handle the sudden exposure. I hung up without saying another word and looked at Todd, still standing there unsure how to react to watching his dad discover his mom's betrayal in real time. Chloe had picked up on the tension and came into the kitchen with a worried look on her face. "Dad, what happened?" Before I could come up with an answer, my phone rang again. It was my brother Dave. I answered, already knowing exactly what he was going to say. "Michael, man, did you see what's going around the internet about Emma?" The information was spreading faster than I ever imagined. In just minutes, the video had reached my family, And I knew it was only a matter of time before our friends, neighbors, and co-workers saw my wife at the center of a public family scandal. Dave was trying to be gentle, but the reality was brutal. Our private life had become national entertainment. Man, it's everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, even Twitter. People are making memes. It was like my entire existence had turned into an internet joke in a matter of hours. For the next 40 minutes, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages came in nonstop. Friends trying to be supportive, co-workers asking if I was okay, even people I barely knew sending me screenshots of the video. Every notification felt like another punch in the gut, a brutal reminder that I was the husband being cheated on in a video going viral. Todd stayed with me in the kitchen like he sensed I shouldn't be alone. Chloe kept asking what was going on. But how do you explain to a 12-year-old girl that her family just went viral because of her mom? Meanwhile, Emma had gone completely silent, probably trying to figure out how to face the storm she'd unleashed. I didn't close my eyes for a single second that night. I sat in the living room watching the video spread in real time, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, our family's private life becoming a national spectacle by the minute. The betrayal had turned into an internet meme in ways I never could have imagined. The kids went to bed not knowing how to process what had just happened, and I stayed up alone, trying to understand how our family had become a viral circus. Every new notification on my phone felt like a stab, a reminder that millions of people were watching my wife kiss another man. Around midnight, I turned on the TV and saw our story hitting the news. The cheating video from the game was playing on CNN's late-night show, then popped up on the late-night comedy circuits, even on local networks. Hosts were talking about the video breaking the internet like it was just entertainment. They replayed the kiss cam scene over and over, analyzing it like modern infidelity commentary. Some even joked about it. It was surreal watching strangers on national television dissect the most painful moment of my life. At 2 a.m., I finally heard her car pull into the driveway. Emma came in trying to be quiet, as if she could somehow dodge the conversation we both knew had to happen. She found me still in the living room, still awake, still processing the nightmare. "Michael," she started, but I cut her off. "How long has this been going on, Emma?" She sighed and sat on the couch, finally admitting what the whole world had already seen. 3 months, she said without hesitation. "Andrew and I, it started 3 months ago." The confession came with no tears, no remorse, no sign of real regret. When I asked why she did it, Emma tried to justify it by saying our marriage had been dead for years, and she needed to feel alive again. It was like watching someone rewrite 17 years of our life together to justify a public betrayal. She even had the nerve to say the exposure wasn't her fault. While Emma packed her bags upstairs, I sat in the kitchen trying to process the reality of it all. This wasn't just a marital separation. It was a public humiliation turned into national entertainment. I grabbed my phone and texted my cousin Brandon Hart, who's a lawyer. "Brandon, I need to talk to you today. Urgent." Around 5 a.m., Emma finished packing. She walked out of the house without looking back, heading straight to Andrew's apartment. When the sun came up and I turned on the morning news, there it was again. Our story on Good Morning America, the Today Show, every major channel. The family scandal had officially become a national headline. Todd came down to the kitchen and found me still awake, watching strangers talk about our lives like we were characters in a tabloid. "Dad," he said, glancing at the TV, "today's gonna be hell at school." Chloe came in a few minutes later, clearly shaken. "Everyone's gonna stare at us, right, Dad? Because of what Mom did." That Wednesday was the longest day of my life. My son left for school trying to hold it together, but I could see in his eyes he was bracing for battle. My daughter was more nervous, asking if she could pretend to be sick. "Dad, everyone's gonna stare at me," she whispered, and I couldn't lie and say otherwise. I dropped them off knowing they'd come back home changed. Our very real story of marital exposure had become public entertainment, and my kids were paying the price for something they didn't do. At 10 a.m., I got the first call from the school. The principal, Mrs. Patterson, explained that my son had gotten into an argument with some classmates in the hallway. "Nothing serious, Mr. Green, but some students made inappropriate comments about the situation at home." My stomach dropped. 16 years old and he'd never been in trouble. Always responsible. focused on school. His reaction to seeing his mother's betrayal was surfacing in unexpected ways. 20 minutes later, the phone rang again, this time about my daughter. The secretary told me she'd asked to go to the nurse's office during math, complaining of a headache. She's physically fine, Mr. Green, but emotionally she seems to be going through something heavy. I found her sitting in the nurse's chair, eyes red from crying. Dad, she whispered when she saw me. People keep whispering when I walk by, pointing. One girl showed the video of Mom on her phone during lunch. It was like someone had stolen her childhood in an instant. But the worst was still to come. Todd came home in the late afternoon, slamming the door like I'd never heard before. He threw his backpack on the floor and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen, a mix of anger, shame, and heartbreak. They're making jokes, he blurted. We're a meme now. People are making TikToks reenacting Mom on the kiss cam. I can't take it anymore. Every word was a punch to the chest. My kids were paying the price for someone else's choices in ways I never imagined. How do you deal with a viral betrayal when it shatters innocent lives? That night I made a painful but necessary decision. I called my parents in Milwaukee and explained everything. Can you take the kids for a few days? They need to get out of here until this madness settles down. My dad understood immediately. Of course, son. Bring them first thing tomorrow. No one will bother them here. It was a relief to know there was a safe haven, far from the stares and cruel whispers. The kids felt torn, relieved to escape, but heartbroken to flee their own town. After dropping them off with my parents, I returned to Chicago feeling empty, but resolved. It was time to face my professional reality. At the construction office, all eyes turned to me as I walked in. Conversations stopped. People pretended to be busy as I passed. During the morning meeting, Mr. Higgins pulled me aside for a private word. We respect your work, but this situation is becoming a distraction. It might be best if you take a few days. The professional humiliation after 16 spotless years was crushing. Later that afternoon, I drove to my cousin's law office. That downtown building had always felt intimidating, but now it represented my only hope of regaining control. My cousin greeted me with a brotherly hug. We'd grown up together, more like brothers than cousins. Man, what a crazy situation. Sit down and tell me everything. It was the first look I'd gotten in days that wasn't full of judgment or morbid curiosity. Finally, someone who didn't see me as a character in a viral circus. I explained how unbearable life had become for the kids, how my job was hanging by a thread, how our family's privacy had completely vanished. I need to get my children out of this city, I told him. There's no way they'll ever have a normal life here again. Everyone recognizes them. Everyone has an opinion about our family. He listened closely, jotting things down. But first, clarify one thing, he said. What are you aiming for? A formal divorce? Custody? What's your end goal? I took a deep breath before answering. I want a divorce, full custody of the kids. I want to leave Chicago and start over somewhere no one knows us. My voice came out stronger than I expected. Emma made her choice when she exposed herself with another man. Now I'm making mine, protecting my kids from this mess. My cousin nodded, clearly encouraged by my determination. Perfect, he said, opening a file. Then let's get to work. You have a strong case for full custody. She exposed them to national humiliation, he continued, scanning legal texts. The damage to the children is measurable. School bullying, social isolation, emotional trauma. Any judge would see that their emotional well-being has been compromised by the mother's reckless decision. I felt a flicker of hope for the first time. There was a legal way out. A path to protect my kids and rebuild somewhere far from this circus. Getting custody after the scandal might be our shot at a fresh start. But how does a betrayed father rebuild with his children after such public exposure? Over the next 2 hours, my lawyer laid out the steps ahead. We'll file for sole custody based on the children's best interest. Their mother's viral exposure has created a toxic environment. As the responsible parent, you have the right to protect them. He also mentioned suing for emotional damages. The public humiliation you suffered has real financial and psychological consequences. Emma needs to be held accountable for the damage caused. It was the first concrete strategy I'd had since our lives fell apart just days earlier. Once we wrapped up the legal details, he leaned back in his chair with that kind of genuine concern only family can show. "Now tell me," he said, lowering his voice, "how are you actually feeling through all this? I know we've been talking strategies and next steps, but I want to know how you, the person, are really handling this emotional fallout after the betrayal." No one had asked me that since our entire world flipped upside down, and in that moment I realized I hadn't even asked myself. The following week was an emotional roller coaster I'll never forget. While the kids were safe with my parents in Milwaukee, I threw myself into the legal process that would change our lives forever. My cousin worked tirelessly preparing all the necessary documents, the petition for full custody, the lawsuit for emotional damages, and all the paperwork to finalize the divorce. What shocked me most was realizing how much evidence we already had. Screenshots of memes mocking our family, records of school calls about bullying, even messages from co-workers commenting on the situation. During this time, Emma remained completely absent from the kids' lives. Zero attempts to reach out, zero concern for their emotional well-being. She was living her new life with Andrew like Todd and Chloe didn't even exist. What I didn't expect was that her absence would become ammunition in the custody battle. My lawyer documented every single day without contact, building a devastating record. "This shows emotional abandonment," he explained. "Any judge will see she prioritized her affair over her children." Then my ex-wife made the dumbest mistake she possibly could have. Instead of trying to repair the damage or show any sign of regret, she launched herself into a full-blown social media campaign. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, even LinkedIn. Suddenly she was everywhere, reinventing herself as the victim. She started posting about unfair judgment from society and her right to be happy. It was like watching someone dig their own grave in court. Every post, every story, every attempt to spin the narrative was just more ammunition for our case. The turning point came when she posted a TikTok in a personal testimonial format. Looking straight into the camera, she spoke about having the courage to leave a toxic marriage and how people don't understand that women deserve happiness too. The caption read, "My truth about suffocating relationships are my truth are women deserve happiness." The video went viral again, but this time the public opinion turned completely against her. The comments were brutal, people asking where her maternal responsibility had gone. While the defendant spiraled into her freshly minted digital persona, I focused on rebuilding stability for my kids. I started researching schools in smaller towns, far from the chaos of Chicago. I wanted a place where they could start over without the weight of viral exposure. My cousin explained that the move would actually help our case. It showed genuine concern for the children's well-being. The contrast between our post-scandal behavior was striking. She was filming justification videos. I was planning my children's future. The legal strategy we developed was brilliant in its simplicity. We didn't need to invent complex arguments or build some elaborate narrative. The facts spoke for themselves. The defendant had exposed her family to national humiliation, emotionally abandoned her children, and created social media profiles solely to play the victim. Meanwhile, I had removed the kids from a toxic situation, sought responsible legal help, and made concrete plans. How does a betrayed father start over with his children? By making decisions rooted in their well-being, not in his public image. During the 2 weeks leading up to the hearing, something interesting happened with public perception. At first, our family was seen as a joke. The cheating video was funny, the memes were everywhere. Everyone was laughing at our downfall. But as Emma kept exposing herself on social media, without showing any concern for the kids, the narrative shifted. People began to realize that 2 children were being bullied because of their mother's reckless choices. Custody after a scandal stopped being a matter of internet gossip. It became about protecting children. The irony was that my ex-wife had created her own legal nightmare. If she had simply gone quiet on social media, sought therapy, and shown real remorse, she might have stood a chance. But her compulsive need to publicly justify herself through those new accounts was supplying us with an endless stream of proof of irresponsibility. My lawyer compiled an airtight case, the original cheating video, screenshots of every problematic post, school reports documenting bullying, records of zero contact with the kids. It's rare to see a case this well documented by the opposing side, he admitted. 2 days before the hearing, I got an unexpected call from the lawyer she had hired. A last-minute attempt to settle. My client is willing to agree to shared custody in exchange for dropping the emotional damages lawsuit. My cousin told me to reject it outright. We held all the cards. After all the public humiliation, emotional abandonment, and complete lack of remorse shown on social media, the defendant didn't deserve shared custody. It was time to fully protect my children from her instability. The night before the hearing, I called the kids in Milwaukee to explain what would happen the next day. Todd asked if they'd have to testify. I reassured him that all the evidence we needed had already been documented, thanks to her own actions online. Chloe asked what would happen next after the court's decision. No matter what the official ruling is, I told her, we already know our life in Chicago is over. It's time to start over somewhere new. The truth was, the court would simply confirm what her behavior had already made crystal clear. The morning of the hearing came with a kind of tension I'd never experienced before. I arrived at the family court building in downtown Chicago at 8 a.m., a full hour early. My lawyer was already there, organizing the final documents and going over our game plan. Michael, we're going to show how all of you, yourself, the kids, your entire family, were victims in this, he said. Still, my stomach was in knots. My children's future was about to be decided in that room. Emma showed up 15 minutes late, accompanied by her attorney, Mr. Martinez. She was dressed conservatively, clearly trying to present herself as a responsible mother, an image completely at odds with the content she'd posted on social media. When our eyes met for the first time since she walked out of our home, I didn't feel anger or heartbreak, just a strange indifference. It was like looking at someone I'd known for years who had suddenly become a stranger. What struck me most was realizing I didn't feel anything for her anymore. Judge Monroe entered the room promptly at 9 a.m. and everyone stood. She looked to be in her mid-50s, gray hair tied in a bun, serious expression but not intimidating. My cousin had done his research. She was known for rulings based solely on the best interest of the children. This is a case involving custody and emotional damages stemming from viral public exposure, Judge Monroe began. Let's get to the facts. It was exactly the kind of no-nonsense tone we needed. My lawyer presented our case with meticulous and devastating clarity. First, he played the original kiss cam video, the one that publicly exposed our family. Then he laid out the bullying Todd and Chloe had faced at school, letters from the principal, screenshots of cruel online comments. Your Honor, the children were pulled out of school due to the psychological trauma caused by their mother's exposure, my cousin explained. It was painful to relive those moments, but necessary if we wanted to protect the kids. Then came the part that hit me hardest, addressing how impossible it had been to deal with a viral betrayal, because I too had been a victim of public humiliation. Society doesn't just ridicule infidelity, he argued. It stigmatizes the betrayed, paints them as weak, as failures, as jokes. He continued, Mr. Green didn't just lose his wife. He lost his professional reputation, his social standing, and his personal dignity. I saw Emma lower her head as the most brutal memes were shown, images portraying me as the internet's latest punchline. He became the subject of memes portraying him as a man incapable of keeping his own family together. My cousin continued, projecting some of the most humiliating images onto the screen. He was placed on leave at work for being a distraction, lost the respect of his colleagues, and became a national punchline. The judge watched each piece of evidence carefully, clearly taken aback by the extent of the damage. It was impossible to deny. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. Lives had been torn apart. The final blow was the presentation of Emma's social media posts, created solely to cast herself as the victim. My attorney played the TikTok video where she talked about breaking free from a toxic marriage, showing no concern for the children whatsoever. While her family suffered devastating consequences, the defendant was celebrating her freedom online, he said. Judge Monroe's expression hardened as the video played. It was obvious that Emma's digital strategy had completely backfired. The defense tried to make hollow arguments about Emma being a victim of a loveless marriage, and that she deserved a second chance at happiness. But when the judge asked about her total lack of contact with the children and her problematic posts, it all fell apart. Mr. Martinez stammered, scrambling to justify the unjustifiable. It was clear they had no solid ground. The contrast between our actions after the scandal was too stark to ignore. The most uncomfortable moment came when Judge Monroe addressed Emma directly. You created multiple accounts to publicly justify your actions, but made no attempt to contact your children. How do you explain that choice? Her answer was weak and contradictory, something about giving them time to process. It was painfully obvious she had prioritized her public image over her family's well-being. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. After a 30-minute recess, Judge Monroe returned with her ruling. The best interest of the children is to remain under the exclusive custody of their father, she declared solemnly. Emma had shown a disregard for family privacy and emotional abandonment of the children. Monroe also granted the emotional damages suit, ordering a $180,000 compensation for the harm done to the entire family. As we walked out of that courtroom, I finally felt like justice had been served. Our new life could officially begin. 2 weeks after the courtroom victory, I was driving down Interstate 80 toward Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with Todd and Chloe in the back seat. We had sold the Chicago house in record time. Apparently, being at the center of a viral scandal speeds up real estate deals. The kids were quiet, still processing the drastic change in their lives. But I saw something on their faces I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. The city offered exactly what we needed: complete anonymity. The house we bought sat on a quiet street called Maple Street, surrounded by neighbors who had no idea who we were. I enrolled the kids at Cedar Rapids High School and Jefferson Middle School, under just our names. Thankfully, our story of marital exposure hadn't made it to small-town Iowa. Todd joined the basketball team, and Chloe signed up for the art club. It was comforting to see them rebuilding their social lives without the weight of shame. I landed a job at a local construction company, Morrison & Associates, where the owner cared more about skills than gossip. The first few weeks were a delicate adjustment period. Chloe made friends with a neighbor named Sarah, and Todd slowly opened up to his basketball teammates. The local community was warm without being nosy. A betrayed father starts over with his kids by learning to appreciate every small sign of normalcy. Some places really do believe in second chances. After 3 months in the new city, our routine finally found its rhythm. Todd was starting on the basketball team, and his grades had improved significantly. Chloe had shed the constant anxiety that haunted her in Chicago. Now she ran around the backyard like any regular kid. I, too, began sleeping through the night without waking in a panic. Emotional recovery after betrayal is a slow process, but with each day we were getting closer to the family we used to be. And now, I want to speak directly to you, who stayed with me through this journey of how to deal with viral betrayal and its devastating aftermath. Have you ever gone through something similar? Had your private life exposed to the public? Been humiliated online? Or had to rebuild your reputation after a scandal you didn't cause? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear how you faced it, and whether you managed to turn public shame into a chance to grow. Tell me how you found the strength to protect your family when it felt like the whole world was against you. If this real story of public betrayal moved you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content. Every day, I share stories about people who faced betrayal, family scandals, and managed to rise above through perseverance and courage. Just like I turned the worst humiliation of my life into a mission to protect my kids, you too can discover that your greatest strength may come from using painful experiences to build a better life. Stay strong on your journey. Truth and dignity always find their way even when everything seems lost.